and where I was able to introduce the central theme, intentional. And in January, we were able to look at some best practices in early years classroom. And during that session, we were able to look at some qualities or skills that early years teacher that every early years teacher must have. And it turned out that those skills that were exposed were not only applicable to early years teacher. In fact, every teacher need to have such skills. So if we miss that edition, we can actually go and try to get the replay via our social media platform. Okay, so for today, we have incorporating 21st century learning themes in our lessons. So that should be our focus for today. But before we delve into that, still like to talk about what does it mean to be intentional? Why have I decided to go with this theme? So to be intentional is actually something that we need in every sphere of our life, not just teaching alone. So it's something that being intentional means doing something on purpose. It's like purposeful living, doing things on purpose, having a clear goal in mind. It's just like a chef trying to do a delicious meal. Definitely, the chef must carefully and intentionally select the right ingredients and the right recipe so that the meal can come out good. So that's the same way it's very important to be intentional in every sphere of our life, as well as in teaching. So when we talk about being intentional in teaching, it's about having clear outcome in mind when we plan our lessons. Being intentional means that we recognize the impact of our activity on student success, because that's how we measure teachers' success or teachers' value. Look at student success to be able to check, if the teacher is really doing well or not. So we have to be intentional about how we plan our lessons, the kind of activity we bring into the classroom, and also about our professional development. Just like what we are having now, conversations like this is something we should always look forward to and be able to participate actively. So it's very, very important. So let me now try to introduce our facilitator for today. He's already around. So, but before I go into that, I would also like to say that when it comes to being intentional, you have to know your subject, you have to know your students, and you also have to know the right resources to use. So know your student, know your subject, know the right resources to use. So in subsequent meetings, I'll be able to expatiate more about what I mean by those three areas. Talking about knowing your students, that's a whole training on its own. How can we know our audience, our students? Anytime I have to do a speaking engagement, I need to know my audience, because the training will have to be tailored to the kind of audience I'm expecting. So in the same vein, you cannot effectively make impact in the classroom without knowing your students. So that's why I said you have to know your students, then you will know your content. If it means going back to study, you have to know your content. But the student must not find out that you don't know it. The day they find out that you don't even know your content, you've lost them, because they believe that we know everything. So there's always a way to handle it. Anyway, let me just quickly delve into introducing our facilitator for today. Our facilitator is David, by the name Mr. David Oluwadara. He's a well-celebrated physics teacher and mathematics teacher whose career has spanned over a decade in 3 international schools in Nigeria. He has vast experience teaching the national curriculum of England and Wales, the K-12 curriculum, and the West African senior secondary curriculum to students aged 11 to 18. His teaching philosophy is to prepare students who will solve the problems of the future, even though it may not be part of that future. Thus, he believes firmly that students should acquire critical 21st century skills of problem solving, critical thinking, innovation, communication, knowledge construction, creativity, and collaboration, which he uses his lessons to drive. David Oluwadara is currently a physics and math teacher and subject lead in one of Africa's finest schools, Green Springs School, Lagos, having previously worked at Boxwood School, Nigeria, the Nigerian School of famous, the Nigerian School of the famous Boxwood School, East Hastings, London, and Olashore International School, where he had the distinct accompaniment of improving students' interest and confidence in physics through his colorful physics and other initiative, leading to the school's best IGCSE physics result in over 2 decades, as well as a remarkable turnout in its WASC physics results. David Oluwadara passionate, is very passionate about continuous professional development, I would call CPD, of teachers with an enviable CPD portfolio. This has seen him contribute to the professional development of his colleagues as the CPD coordinator at the places he has worked. He loves to share and read stories of teachers' impact in and out of the classroom. His teaching practice has won him a number of awards and recognition, which include the Martina Teacher of the Year 2001 State Champion Award, the Initiative for Education and Development Teacher Prize 2021, and the 2020 Teacher X Prize for Innovative Teaching Resources. In 2023, David Oluwadara was named as one of the top 50 inspirational teachers in Africa by Late Africa, a non-governmental organization focused on teachers training and development. It continues to contribute to the development of the teaching profession and improvement of the status of teachers in the society through engaging and insightful posts and teaching objects on its different media platforms. He believes that the child, not the curriculum, must be at the center of all teaching, and the child must be seen first as a human before being a student. David Oluwadara has volunteered in different capacities and contributed to the development of the profession. He was a member of the panel of judges for the 2022 IDEE Teachers Prize. He's a volunteer facilitator and guest on different teachers development platforms such as Late Africa Super Teacher Series and a training facilitator for Green Springs Training College. David Oluwadara has volunteered in different capacities in contribution to the development of the profession. He was a member of the panel of judges for the 2022 IDEE Teachers Prize. He's a volunteer facilitator and guest on different teachers development platforms such as Late Africa's Super Teacher Series and a training facilitator for Green Springs Training College. David Oluwadara has a verified certificate from Harvard as a teacher, as a leader of learning. He's a certified Microsoft certified educator, a UNESCO in partnership with Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development certified digital teacher, an Apple teacher, and a Seneca certified educator. He's also trained and obtained the Georgia Professional Standard Commission Certificate in Education, Educators Ethics. David Oluwadara loves to read thrillers and crime stories, plays chess and Scrabble, and loves to drive around if the traffic and roads permit. Wow. With an amazing ovation, which we can put in the charts, let's welcome our facilitator for today. Mr. David Oluwadara, as he leads us on the topic incorporating 21st century learning themes in our lessons. So, Mr. David, you have the floor. Can we welcome him in the chat, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Olawole. Thank you so much for that. I am indeed grateful to be here. I'm glad to have this opportunity to share with us all. Um, as we've said, my name is David Oluwadara. I teach physics currently and I've done that in quite a few schools, as I've been said. But today we are here to talk about what it means to have a rich classroom, a rich lesson. Firstly, I would like to confirm that we can all see my screen. Can we? Can you just confirm that you
Yes,
can
sir.
see the slide I'm projecting? Okay. Thank you very much. So thank you for having me once again. I am a fan or an advocate of constant professional development, because if you don't continue to develop yourself, you will soon find out that that thing that you think you know, you are so good at, the world has moved on from it. So at the turn of the century, we found that many of us are still a long way to go in actually implementing this, being able to implement these in our lessons. So today we are going to look at a few of these, and we are going to, as much as possible, make it practical, see how we can incorporate these things in our lessons. So let's get started. First of all, who am I? A few of the things I have done have been said by the facilitator, the convener of the program. My name is Mr. Oluwadara. I'm a Microsoft certified educator, certified leader of learning from Harvard, and I have a few other certifications like from other notable bodies all over the world. So today, this is my starter. This is where I'm thinking I should put a gift to this. Maybe I'll share data to anyone who gives me the correct answers to this. After this, I will give someone maybe reimburse the data that you have spent in attending this CPD. So how many faces do you see in this optical illusion? Can we have our answers in the chat box? How many faces do you see in this optical illusion? How many faces are there? Look at it very well. Just count how many faces are there and put your answers in the chat box. I'll give us just maybe 1 minute or less to do that. Okay, I'm going to, I had to just go back so I can see what we are putting in the chat box. Okay, I see a few messages. I see 3 from Mr. Clinton. 3, okay. 3, okay, let me go back there so we can all see the illusion again. How many faces do you see here? How many faces do you see? Look at it again. Mr. Clinton, you may also want to look at it again because there are definitely not 3. Okay, I'll give just about 20 seconds more and then we move on. You have to look at the entire image, not just the big head that you are seeing. You have to look at the entire image, everything. How many faces do you see? Okay, just to go back to the chat box to see if I have any other responses. Okay, I still have from just Mr. Clinton who says they are just three. Okay, let's go back. Let me see. Let's see if actually there are just three. Let's see if there are just three. Now look at this. Look at this. There are actually 9. If you look very well, of course, there's a big head with his own face. Then there's the face of the man attached to that head. There's the face of the woman, the face of the baby that of the dog that the woman is carrying. There are faces also on the left and right side of the wall. So in all, there are 9 faces. Thank you very much, everyone who volunteered the response. So let's go on. What are 21st century learning themes? This is also a place where I would like us to talk, to rub mind. What are some of those things that we have heard of before? Some of those learning things that you probably have heard of, you have heard people talk about them, you have probably seen a few of them or heard a few of them. What are 21st century learning themes? I would like to hear from as many of us that would like to comment on this. Can we have anyone? What are your idea of 21st century learning themes? Yes, any response? Let's make this as interactive as possible. What have you heard? What 21st century themes have you probably heard of before? We have quite a few of us in class, so I'm sure that all of us will have heard one thing or the other. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clinton. Critical thinking, collaboration. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, if the convener will permit me, I think there is someone I should quickly acknowledge who has graciously joined, Mr. Kabiru Abbas. Thank you for joining. Mr. Abbas is a teacher's teacher, someone who is so much interested in development of teachers. His organization actually runs the ID Teacher Prize year in, year out. Thank you so much for again joining, because ordinarily that's someone who should have said that he has seen it all. But it's just a testament to his desire for continuous learning that he is here. Thank you so much, Mr. Abbas. I see you for joining us. We appreciate you. And thank you also for your responses. Yes, we have seen quite a few. Collaboration, planning, problem solving, critical thinking. Thank you so much. Now let us look at what the authorities, let me put it that way, the authorities or the people that have designed these things, let's look at what they said. So according to Microsoft, which I can say, Microsoft is the organization I can say is at the front line of designing 21st century learning themes. They have come up with these 6 themes under which every skill that we have mentioned can be categorized. So we have collaboration, there is skilled communication, there is knowledge construction, there is self-regulation, real-world problem solving, the use of ICT for learning. Now, of course, in this class, we will not be able to look at all 6 because, trust me, to dive into each of them is going to be a lot of work, except you are only planning to just gloss over. And I don't think we should gloss over. I think we should actually look at each of them and look at specific learning activities that will bring those out in our learners. So these are the 6 that we have. Many other people will talk about innovation. Innovation could come under real-world problem solving. Many other people could talk about digital citizenship. Digital citizenship could also still come under use of ICT for learning or under self-regulation or other solving real world problems. Now, I would like us to look at these reflections. I'm not going to read them out to you. I'd like you to just read them, and then we are going to have just a few minutes of brainstorming around them. I would like to hear our voices this time. Read them, students of the 21st century, read these two and tell me what you think. What does this say to you? Does this resonate with you in any way? When we have read, the floor is open. You can just signify, and let's have one or two people who would like to tell us what they think of these quotes. How does it resonate with them? Is it true? Okay, I'd like to hear a few thoughts on this. Yes, if you like to speak, just unmute yourself and go ahead and say something. Okay, no one is saying anything. Do you have anyone raising their hands? Okay, it says today's digital kids think of information and communications technology as something akin to oxygen. They expect it, it's what they breathe, and it is how they live. They use ICT to meet, play, date, and learn. It's an integral part of their social life. It's how they acknowledge each other and form their personal identities. I have seen and heard many teachers say that ICT is a distraction to learning, is only wasting the time of the students are not concentrating, and all that we have. I've heard a lot of people say that. But the question is, what are the options? It is already here. ICT is here to stay. Whether we like it or not, that is what the world is. So even if we had our teacher training in the days of writing our lesson notes with pens and in 60 leaves of exercise books, and then going to class to copy on the board, the talk and chalk method, we cannot just place ourselves in that realm and say we are not going to live, because the world is going to live. We can complain all we want. We can say, oh, attitude is bad. It's taking away their screen time. Well, it is what it is. That is where we are. How many of us, well, those who, some of us will at least still remember the time when you had to go to the bank to withdraw anything as little as, even as little as 10 naira, 5 naira, you have to go to the bank. You will go to the counter, you collect a tally, a number, then you go and sit down, you wait for your number to be called, and then God help you, you give your tally to somebody else, or somebody else picks up your tally, the person collects your money and goes away. You have no tally to present. How many of us remember those days that all of us had to get into the bank? When the technology came and then people were able to use ATMs, and then later on switched to mobile banking, internet banking, many people said no. Many people said, oh, they will steal my money will not be there anymore, and this and that. But it is what it is. We all had to move. We all had to abide by that new arrangement. We all had to follow that new technology. So we have no choice. That's also how it is with students now. Technology is their language. We have no choice. We have no choice. And just as a mentor of mine said to me sometime ago during the outbreak of COVID, and then schools were trying to sort out learning platforms for students. And then a mentor of mine said that technology will not replace teachers, but teachers who refuse to adopt technology will be replaced by those who adopt technology. Technology is not here to replace us, but if you are not willing to learn and go with the flow, we are going to get replaced. We're going to get kicked out of the class. So it's very important. Before I go on, I just want to know if anyone still has anything to say from what we just saw on the slide. I put the slide up again. Okay, in the absence of any comments on that, I'm hoping that at some point I will hear people's voices in this presentation, because I usually like that we talk. It should not be a one-side communication. So let's look at this first one. Here we have no choice because it's an activity that we all have to do. So the first learning thing we are looking at is collaboration. And the reason we are looking at this is because we want to look at exactly what collaboration is. Because many times, many teachers have construed collaboration to just be that students talk to each other in class. That's not collaboration. Or that students do peer reading. That's not collaboration. For us to be able to say that children or students responsibility amongst themselves, there must be shared responsibility. They must be the ones who are sharing the responsibility to themselves. That, oh, you are doing this, I am doing that. And then they are taking substantial decisions together. And then more importantly, their work must be interdependent. So let me give a scenario. You go to class and then you ask students to come up with a story. They're supposed to write a story on maybe a novel that they are reading in the English class. They have to come up with a story, or with another way in which the story could have ended. And then you put them in groups. But at the end of the day, only one person in that group does the work. Only one person does the work and submits. And everybody in the group shares the mark. That's not collaboration. That's because their work is not interdependent. For the students who have collaborated, their work must be such that if student A does not do his work, our work as a group will not be complete. If we say we collaborate, or students collaborate, and they can go on and complete their work when some people have not even taken part in the work, then they have not collaborated. So in putting collaboration in place, we have to be very, very sure, very careful to know that the task that we are giving them is such that every child must have a responsibility for it. Every child will have something that he or she must do before the entire group can say that they are done. So if, for instance, in a physics lesson, let's say I'm teaching them about energy resources, and I say, okay, we are going to construct a simple solar panel, and I put them in groups. And I say, okay, you have to source for materials, you have to get the panel, you have to get the wire, you have to get the load that we will try to power. So you see that I have given each of them different things to do. So if the person who sources for material sources for his or her material, and the person who is supposed to give us a load to use to test what we are doing, test our project, does not do his own work, then that project is stalled. That's the essence of collaboration. Collaboration is to force students to need to work interdependently, to know that I cannot do this alone. And why? Why is this important? In the real world out there, they are going to depend on other units in their workplace. You're working in any organization, you are going to depend on purchasing and supplies for what you want to do. You are going to depend on HR to give you adequate staffing. You are going to depend on different people for different things. So you cannot say that, oh, I alone can get this done. There will be people that you would need to work with along the line to help you get things done. So that's the essence of collaboration. Now, I have a task that I would like us to do here. From what we have discussed so far, I'd like us to see this thing here. It says, what activities can you do in your early years, elementary and secondary school classrooms to drive collaboration? I know there are different teachers here teaching different subjects. Maybe I should even start by asking us all to just let me know, is there any early years teacher here? Can we just signify in the chat box if you are an early years teacher, or you are a primary elementary school teacher, primary teacher, or a secondary school teacher? If you're a secondary school teacher, are you a science teacher or a humanities teacher? What's the spread? I would just like to know the spread so we know how we can deal with this practically for us. Or do you have any early years teacher? Okay, nobody is in early years. Any elementary school teacher? Elementary, I see no elementary still. Well, any secondary school teacher? Okay, I see secondary school teacher and teacher trainer. Thank you very much. So what I'm going to say now, okay. So what I'm going to say, I want us to think about our subjects, whatever it is that we teach, and then just volunteer. How? What activity exactly? Just think of one activity exactly that you think will drive collaboration in your lesson. You can give us a topic and just give us a brief description of that activity. I know there are a few secondary school teachers there. A few of us are from secondary school. I see some amazing colleagues here doing great things. I see Mrs. Adeyemo here. She's one amazing, fantastic secondary school teacher. So what are those things that we can learn from your classrooms that drive collaboration among your students? Okay, I think at this point I'm going to begin to call people. So I'm going to start with Adepitan Busola. I'm assuming that is a female. So, ma'am, do you mind sharing with us what are some activities that you think you can do that would incorporate collaboration in your lessons?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for this platform. Thank you so much, sir. Um, there was something I did recently. I've done it before, and I repeated it again this term. I told my student I teach commerce.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. So I teach commerce, and what I did was the last time. What I did was, I told them to each topic that I teach that I taught throughout that term. We did insurance, we did I taught insurance, transportation, a lot of all those topics. I compiled them together and I shared the students into groups. So I told them to, work together and brainstorm on how to get a drama out of the topic. They are presenting a drama, a role play,
Okay.
and they're also presenting, and they would also display real life real life materials in the class, and they did it. So they all worked together. So that's how I was able to make all of them come together, and they all participated in
Wow,
the
thank you.
project.
Thank you. That was actually good. I was waiting to see where you will land. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was thinking you were going to say that you put them into groups and said they should go and read up, but I like
No, they
the
actually
drama that
presented
put
in
in,
class.
and I like that, and that's fine. Okay, before you go too far, is there, from what she has said, is there a way we could make that better? Can any one of us give any insight? That's a commerce classroom. Is there anything that we could do to make that better? That's a fantastic idea. Yeah, anybody?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, madam.
Yes, my name is Mrs. Adeyemo Busayo
Yes,
from
ma'am.
Lagos.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Adequito, for sharing. I liked
Thank
what
you,
she did
ma'am.
with her students, the collaboration. However, they could go further by allowing the students to present artifacts based on what they have presented. And what do I mean by artifacts? They could go on to present a project, to give a better understanding of the various topics that they have treated. And they could go on to present a project. They could go on to even talking about transportation that she mentioned. They could write a letter, even make the students write a letter to maybe commissioner of involved with transportation or ministry of transportation, the ministry of transportation, writing about maybe what solutions they could bring on board to the problems facing our transport system. So this would make the student think more on how they can be solution providers, not just about the content, the knowledge based alone, but about being a problem solver. After learning the content, after having the knowledge of this content, they could go further to say, oh, these are the artifacts we have created from the knowledge that we have gained. These are what we have produced. We have produced, we have presented a paper, we have written a publication to that effect, we have written a letter to the Ministry of Transportation, providing solution to some of the transportation issues in our community, and whatever thing that they are facing. And they could even link it, to a lot of things. I'm a SDG advocate, so I would want to see, the sustainability in those topics, and let's see how our students can provide solutions to global issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Um, Ms. Adeyemo has helped us to embellish that and take it further to the other learning things. Thank you. Just before we go on, I'd like to share this with us. These are the rubrics that we have for collaboration. Now, of course, when learners are not working together, they are not collaborating at all. So that should be one. Now, the rubric goes from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest and the best form of collaboration that you can have. Now, learners just working together, but do not have to share responsibility. So what does that mean? That means that, for instance, you say that students should come together with a drawing, with an artwork, but they do not share any responsibility in the sense that one person can do all the drawing and then they just present. They have not shared any responsibility there. So that collaboration is just at level 2. So that one will just be maybe a 40% of collaboration if we put it on a percentage scale. But for us to even take it up further, students should have shared responsibility such that in maybe designing the artwork that I said that Mr. Adeyemo was thinking they could design, they then are both deciding that they are both sharing responsibility on what part of this work am I to do? Who will do this part? Who will do this other part? What is the part that each of us has to do? So that's a shared responsibility. And then rubric 4, the learners must have shared responsibility and they must make substantive decisions together. So at rubric 4, they are not waiting for the teacher to tell them what to do. The teacher just says, okay, this is the general idea. The students are then able to collaborate and decide on how exactly they want to implement that idea. So the content, the process, product of their work is their decision. They are the ones that decide on what to do with it. And then rubric 5, They have shared responsibility. They take decisions together, and then very importantly, their work is interdependent, meaning that the work is not done except everybody has taken a part in it. So if we have this at the back of our mind, we will be able to evaluate the activities that we are trying to put together to drive collaboration. Be able to see, okay, at what level is this going to be? Now, I'm not saying that in every class you must have level 5 collaboration. That's not going to happen in every class. Depending on the subjects you are teaching and the topic you want to teach, or even the time of the day you are teaching that topic, you may not be able to achieve a level 5 collaboration in every lesson. But the idea is that there is a variety and there's always a chance for there to be, for the students to learn some form of collaboration, at least in the contacts that they make with you. That children don't go out through lessons with you in an entire week and they have not collaborated in any way. So that is that about collaboration. Because of time, time is fast running. That's why I said there's no way we could have been able to look at all 6 themes in this one lesson. But I'll just go to the next one, the next theme, and we'll be looking at what that is. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So now the next theme after collaboration is skilled communication. Part of what we have in skilled communication is what Mr. Adeyemo already took us into, when they now have to communicate their ideas, have to write to, I mean, make their have to write a pitch to people who can solve their problem. So under skilled communication, learners are required to produce extended communication with supporting evidence and for a particular audience. So what means that so imagine that the work that the children did in Mrs. Alekiton's class, and then they came up with that, and then they take it up, write a letter, provide evidence to the Commissioner for Transport, and say these are transport issues that we face. They have written that letter to a particular audience, and then they support with evidence. Now, communication is not students talking in classes. No. The talk should be designed to serve a purpose. Communication is also not limited to classroom speeches. Communication is not that, oh, the child has come to the classroom and then they are now presenting or that they're now talking. No, that's not skilled communication. The key word there is skilled. Skilled. Students writing, students presenting on the stage, students may be carrying their work to the local council. For instance, some students at the outset of HIV, when HIV was still a novel disease, there was a school that worked that the students did something around HIV, and then they took that drama, they developed a playlist and took that playlist to the community center where they had their fathers, mothers, parents. So they were able to design that to educate the community about what HIV was and how it could be prevented. That was some form of skilled communication for that. So skilled communication is also another important aspect. And then, of course, I'm going to go to someone else to tell us what activities we can do. Since all of us are in secondary school, or seems so, what activities can we do that can drive communication in our classes? What activities can drive skilled communication in our classes? And I think I'm going to call on, who do I call on now? Lord Chris. I see Lord Chris, and I think that you are also a secondary school teacher. Can you tell us what your subject is and how you can drive skilled communication in your lessons? Okay, do we have Lord Chris? Okay, seems Lord Chris is not here. Let me take Mr. Omowumi, how can we drive skilled communication in our lessons in a typical science class, for instance? Since you're speaking, but I can't hear you, am I the only one? I can see that your mic is moving, but I can't hear you. Hello? Okay, is there anyone who would like to share with us how we can drive skilled communication in our lessons? Just for context, okay, Mr. Kabiru Abbas, thank you very much, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. David, organizers, and everyone. Good evening. Good to
Good
be with
evening,
you
sir.
today. Thank you. I think what we can do is to see how the student can improve in terms of the different facets of communication. We can ask the students to make presentations, particularly digital presentation, to also bring digital into it. We can ask students to prepare PowerPoint presentations. Through that, students can know how to make slides and all that. We can also ask students to do argumentative essay to argue for and against any of these issues we are driving at. We can also ask them to write an essay. We can bring an advocacy effort, just like the madam that spoke earlier spoke about. We can ask them to write a letter to the head of academics. We use this a lot in our program. Write them to write a letter on that issue. And also we can ask them to go and do some research, to go and use the Google and use all the some other digital tools to check out what other people have done on that area. So through this area, we are already improving speaking English, we're improving presentation, we're improving how they can argue, and we're improving how they can influence policies. Thank you.
Thank you
Over.
so much. Thank you so much for sharing in your wealth of experience, Mr. Abbas. And just for context also, these are the skilled communication rubrics. So for level 1, just like we had under collaboration, level 1 is that learners are not required to produce any communication in class. You just read, answer questions, and they go. But for level 2, they are extended to produce extended communication or multimodal. Multimodal means that the communication could be in form of writing or drawing or setting up a Google form to collect evidence. So you have some multimodal communication means, but they are not required to provide supporting evidence. In fact, communication could also be that they have to record a podcast, for instance. But they may not, at level 2, they are not required to provide evidence and they are not required to design their work for any particular audience. But for level 3, they have to do the extended communication, provide supporting evidence, and or provide communication for a particular audience, but they do not have to do both. That means they don't have to provide supporting evidence as well as design communication for a particular audience. Now for level 4, they must do all extended communication or multimodal communication, supporting evidence, design their communication for a particular audience. So when you teach students, maybe you're a literature teacher and you are looking at the story of Macbeth, for instance, the students have read, and then you can introduce multimodal communication when you by asking them to maybe depict a particular scene in an artwork. Use an artwork to depict a particular scene in Macbeth. That's some form of multimodal communication. Now, if you now go ahead to say okay, the scene that you have depicted, you have to provide, you have to design that piece for a particular audience. So you have to design this piece for an audience. Let's say you have to design it for elementary students or nursery school students. Maybe you are selected to go and tell elementary students in your school the story of Macbeth. What kind of artwork will you design that will catch their fancy? So you are designing that for a particular audience. And then, if you then have to provide supporting evidence for any work that you are doing, then you have extended the communication. You have extended it to being able to cover all the communication rubrics. And that is where we should aim for. So these are the 4 communication rubrics that we have. And then we quickly look at the next one, the last one that we'll be able to look at in this training. As I said, we are going to be able to look at just the first 3 and 21st century learning themes. So the one we are going to look at now is this knowledge construction. Knowledge construction. Now, other knowledge construction, the activity that you are going to design must require that learners construct their own knowledge. That means they have to form their own ideas. So they read different parts, study different resources, consult with different sources on a particular topic, and then form their own path, form their own knowledge, reach their own conclusion. And then able to say that from this and this and this, and I think that this is the conclusion of this matter. So that is where knowledge construction comes in. And then in doing this also, there is usually the need to apply that knowledge in a new context. So when you are able to say that, oh, you have constructed knowledge at the peak, the knowledge you have constructed is interdisciplinary. They can apply it in a new context in that topic itself, and then even in another topic in another subject. So that's knowledge construction for us. And that's also a very important 21st century skill, knowledge construction. Many times, particularly in this world that we are in, you will find that particularly for those of us who teach subjects that are not so complex, or subjects that are not, how will I put it, that are not vague, not abstract. You see that many things that you want to teach the students, they have already heard about it. They know about it. They've read something about it before. They've seen it online. They've seen it on Google. So what we then need to do is to help them to construct their knowledge, to synthesize these different things that they have read. Because of what use will it be if the same thing you are doing for them in class is what they already did for themselves at home? What they already saw on Google is the same thing you are coming to tell them. Then there's no point in them coming to class. But we have to improve on that by making sure that that thing that we are coming to do with them in class is a build-up on whatever it is that they already knew. So it's important that we do that. And what are some learning activities that we can do in our classrooms that will drive knowledge construction? I will start this by, let me give my own example here. Activities that we can do that drive knowledge construction. I'll give an example. A while back, I worked in a school where there was a problem with the physics unit. Students were disenchanted with physics. There was a problem with physics. The students were failing, basically. Parents were not happy. So at the point that I was hired, of course, I was given a task, an immediate task when I came in, that look here, you are here on a rescue mission. That was what was said. You have to move this result up. You have to build confidence. And then what I saw, what I think was a problem was that the students were being taught the textbook physics. So they would write all the notes, write all the formulas. There was a topic that they were taught in year 10. That topic was actually a year 11 topic. Those of us who are into sciences will remember that topic. Measurement of heat, thermal capacity, and specific heat capacity, and what have you. It was a year 11 topic. But they had been taught in year 10. These students didn't know anything about what they were taught. And then, of course, the person that taught them, for all his best intentions, I presume, what he did was he wrote out those things as they are in new school physics. Those of us who are familiar with new school physics and that topic, there's something like mass of calorimeter, mass of water, mass of calorimeter plus water, and then new school physics use subscripts M subscript C plus M subscript W plus M subscript C plus W plus all of those things. And that was exactly how the man just wrote it out for them. And the students could not make a sense of what had been written. So one thing I just saw was that, okay, we have to solve this problem. And these students need to be able to solve this problem so that they get excited to want to do this. Not me solving the problem for them. And I said, okay, here's what you are going to do. From everything that you have learned, my first time that I said, everything you have learned in physics from your previous teacher, everything that you have been taught, I want you to come up with the best projects that you can come up with, applying all the knowledge that you already know. And there was complaint, oh, we can't do this, I have not done anything. I said, don't worry, I will support as much as I can, but you will do the work yourself. And then that was what birthed an initiative that we call Colorful Phase Initiative then. I was able to then get the students themselves, the students that had a problem initially themselves, now began to think of solutions. They were the ones who themselves now began to think that, okay, I could actually do this. I only need this material, this knowledge from this topic, I can apply it to do this. I can take my knowledge of total internal reflection to do a project on how the rainbow is produced. So that's knowledge construction. You were taught total internal reflection. Now you want to use that to figure out a way. What is it that must have led to how rainbows are produced? So you are constructing knowledge by yourself. At the end of the day, these children themselves became their own problem solvers. So one thing I noticed also is that if we are able to get students involved in these things, they reduce our work. We are able to do less teacher talk in class. Students are busier, they want to learn, and they are interested more in coming to class. They always look forward to the class. And I know that is where we all want to get to. That is where we all want to be able to say, oh, I went to class today and it was not as stressful as it usually would have been. And as we all continue to improve, the Lord help us. This is already 5 minutes past 3. I'm thinking of taking about 10 minutes of questions before I call it a day. Yes. Any questions? Thank you. I see Mr. Lord Chris raised up his hand and put it down. Okay, you're raising up your hand again. Okay, Mr. Lord Chris, go ahead. I see Mr. Kabiru Abbas hand again. Was it the previous one or just a new one? I don't know. But Mr. Lord Chris, go ahead. Mr. Lord Chris, I see your hand. Please go ahead with your question or contribution. Okay. I don't know if Mr. Lopez is saying anything or if you can hear him. His hand was raised, but I can't hear anything from him. Mr. Kabiru Abbas, I see your hand raised. Do you have a contribution or it was from the previous one?
Okay. Good evening once again. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think another thing that I want to say is that Thank you for sharing this, and thanks for the organizer for organizing this. Unfortunately, some of our colleagues are not online, but I think I will encourage educators and teachers to come together in their own schools to continually discuss this. You know, you've advised on lifelong learning, or trying to know what's the latest and all that, particularly on these rubrics that you have developed now. For those of us in this meeting, I think our administrator is also in this meeting. For teacher trainers in this meeting, teacher supervisors, teacher monitors, I think these are really good rubrics that we can use in our own classroom assessment or classroom observation. Because if you ask any teacher whether they are using these in their lessons, they will tell you they are using it. But with the use of these rubrics, you can now look at the stage or the level and the rates with which they are using it. Also, is to say that in everything that in the three key themes that you have selected and discussed today, I also think that the element of digital literacy had come into that, so that we can then do better, give assignments, let the student be able to think. Because I'm thinking, my subject, the subject I'm teaching in our school is critical thinking and strategic thinking. That's what I'm teaching. So it's important that we allow our students, give them opportunity to use some of these methods that have been discussed today, to brainstorm, to do it on their own, to work in groups, to do that. But teacher would say, within 40 minutes, how this, how that. But it is important that we need to continue to improve and use all these methodologies to improve, because we are no longer building students for just content alone. Oh, write 40 minutes essay, write 50 minutes essay. We are building students who are going to solve what problems. Look at what is happening now, conflict here and there, economic issues. Rice has gone to this, rice has gone to that. How are we going to build students who are going to be farmers of 21st century, who are going to produce food for this country? You are teaching physics. How are your physics students going to be able to develop engineering solutions to some of these things? When are we going to have the likes of Mark Zuckerberg and all that IT giants in Nigeria from our students? Lastly, from me, how are we preparing future-ready learners? The type of ICT that I learned in school when I was in University of Agriculture, that was not necessary. It wasn't important. They were teaching me Fortran and Basic then. Bullshit IT they taught me. I never got to meet Fortran and Basic in my life. I was meeting how to use PowerPoint, Excel, and all that for my work. But nobody ever taught me that and all that. So, as teachers, please, I want to ginger us today. When I have opportunity, David knows me. When I have opportunities to talk to you colleagues, I talk to you that we need to go outside the textbook. This is what the scheme says. Scheme is not going to help us solve 21st century skill, though. Rice is 12,000 in Nigeria. How are we building agricultural science students who can plant rice at home to make sure that there is Gary? Gary in my Ijebu, so I learned that Gary is 13,000 per bag, 2,000 per mudu for Gary. Who is going to develop that hybrid Gary that will grow and be mature in 4 months? Those are the type of, we want to build students that are problem solvers and solution providers, not students who can write all the beautiful essay, Olagunju 2002, David 2016, as our lecturers are doing in the other university. So please, guys, let's see how we can do this. Thank you so much, David. I think it's
Thank
a
you.
good one today. We've
Thank
really
you.
learned.
Thank
Thank
you
you, and
so much.
have a good week to everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Kabiru Abbas is very passionate about teacher development. I've known him for quite a few years, and I know that he's very passionate when it comes to actually building students that will solve problems. I also believe, as was even read to us earlier, that Many of the problems that the world is facing now, we have not even seen anything. We have to begin to think of problems that will come up and think of the fact that students are going to have to solve those problems. Let's look at the pandemic, for instance. Do you know how many pandemics we are still going to have before the earth runs out its course? There are still going to be a lot more pandemics. There are still going to be a lot more issues. Problems are still going to come up, whether we are there or not. But the children that we are training today are the ones that will be able to solve the problem when the problem comes on, depending on how well we train them. Um, Someone came to deliver a training in my school one time, I think 2 years ago, and the person said, do you know that the children you are training now today, they are going to manage your pension funds in a few years' time? And if the way you are training them today is that when they get to your pension fund, they squander it, you will come back and reap the reward yourself too. So let's begin to think of how what we are doing today is going to affect the future that we are hoping for and yearning for. And I have a comment. Okay, Mr. Lord Chris, we couldn't hear you. We are sorry about that. We couldn't hear you. Um, Incorporating these things in practical teaching will prepare learners for the future. Yes, that's correct. And the thing is that these things are not taught. They are not taught in any teacher training college. That's the truth. Many of us here who are teachers went to teacher training colleges. No learning thing, no 21st century design is taught in any teacher training college. You have to go and look for a way to learn yourselves. And so far, so good. I think that this is a good place to learn it. We have been able to look at just the first three, collaboration, skilled communication, and knowledge construction. Maybe some other time we'll have the opportunity to look at the remaining three. Thank you, and I hope wish us all a very splendid week ahead as we begin to implement these analysis. Now I hand over to the convener of the program, Mr. Omawumi Kolawole. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. David, and all contributors. This was a very, very impactful training. Yes, very, very well impactful. And sometimes this is why I sometimes dislike the idea of tagging a training, free training, because sometimes a lot of educators tend to devalue it because of the fact that it's tagged free. But we can see that there's so much value has been communicated there by Mr. David and everybody that contributed. Thank you so much. Talk about collaboration, talk about skilled communication, knowledge construction. I believe each and every one of us must have been, must have thought that, oh, this is something I've done before, but we saw it we're able to see it in another dimension. So, which means learning is a lifelong thing. So we can't say that we know it all. Oh, I've done this training before. Oh, collaboration, those are the 21st century skills. But we can see that this was able to come in another dimension. Collaboration alone, from what I've seen here, from the way Mr. David was able to look at it, collaboration alone, if we have to deal with that extensively, we can be on it for another 1 hour. So each of those skills alone can take an hour to delve into. So we'll try to see if we can organize another session so that we can be able to look at more of these skills. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. If there is any question, we'll take one so that we can round off if there will be any questions. So our organization is actually committed to teachers' growth, teacher development, because we believe that professional development is a lifelong thing, and we must always seek every opportunity to have conversations like this, because that will help us to improve ourselves and also improve our classroom practice. So I'm waiting if there is any more contributor or question. Okay. In the access of none, uh, we will try to round up. Do you have? Yes, we do have our own community. So, which I think we've done the introduction earlier. So, for the purpose of those that came late, our community is Frontline Learning Center. So, you can check us up on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So, we actually, this actually is a series. So, what we are doing now is a series. We call it intentional because truly we cannot implement these themes. We can't be able to incorporate these themes if we are not intentional. So, it's a series that will continue. We already have something coming up in March, so we can look forward to that. And that will be for administrators and also aspiring administrators. So in January, we had something for early years teacher. This one more of elementary, February edition, we have more of secondary school teacher coming on board. Then for that of March, administrator will greatly benefit from that. So if we are not intentional, there's no way we'll be able to implement all of these things. Just think about, okay, collect my money, let me collect my money, let me collect my salary and go. But then it's beyond the money. What about the impact? What about the legacy? So that's why we've come up with that theme, being intentional. And the series will still run for a couple of months, having a session once in a month. So that's our own way of giving back. So we actually do organize 21st century training for teachers, whether online or uh, in-person training. So paid ones at that, and also free ones. So there's no excuse to not be able to grow as an educator because there are free training. There are also valuable paid session. So I'll just put a bit of contribution to the communication part. I believe communication is not just verbal communication. I know we have verbal communication, can be verbal, there's written, uh, and then there's an aspect that is not commonly talked about, is the aspect of listening. So that's also a skill that we also need to develop. We also need to let our students also develop. So it's not just verbal communication, written alone, or even non-verbal. What about listening? So I just thought to add that to what we call communication. So in the absence of any further questions, we try to draw the curtain on this note. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And for if there's any of us that missed out any of the session, we can watch out for the replay on our social media platform. That's LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. So it's Frontline Learning Center. So thank you, Mr. David. Thank you, one. Thank you all. So see you in March.
Thank you, Mr. Kolawole. Thank you, everybody, for having me.